Kia ora and welcome to this episode of The Amateur Austenite. I'm Frances Duncan, an author and the founder of the Jane Austen Society of Aotearoa, New Zealand. My co-host is Emma.
Hello.
Today we're discussing Chapter 29 of Northanger Abbey by Jane Austen. In Chapter 29, Catherine travels home relatively unharmed and the Ellens commiserate. So much happened in the last chapter. It feels like we've jumped so much time from what was happening in the previous one that we discussed. Suddenly, Catherine is on the road.
She was hopeful of being asked to marry Henry last time we saw her. Now she's collapsed in the corner of a carriage, so miserable she's not even noticing what's passing by the window. And she passes by Woodston, and there she knows that Henry's working away, and she's passing by. He's so near, yet so unconscious. Oh! Have you ever had that circumstance in your life where...
I mean, this exact circumstance where I was in a carriage and my boyfriend was down the road and didn't know I was there.
Seriously? In a carriage, Frances? But you know, sometimes, like, you're passing through an airport, but you're only there for half an hour, so you can't catch up with that person that you desperately want to see, or you're not close enough to tell them you want to see them, or... Oh, again, this is 17 again.
I know.
You know, the impossible circumstances that you can't change.
It's a bit like driving past the turn off to your ex's place. You're like, I can't turn down there anymore.
Except you can reasonably assume that your ex doesn't want to see you, whereas she knows that Henry would want to see her, but there's nothing she can do about it.
Austen uses the word terrors, no terrors, to describe the journey. She's in a genuinely scary situation, but she's so caught up in her emotions that she doesn't feel any kind of fear, even though she was creating it for herself at Northanger. She doesn't even know where she's going. I mean, she knows she's going home, but she doesn't know how to get there. She has to rely on other people, and she had to rely on Eleanor to give her enough money to even go on this journey.
So she's asking people along the way where to go next, and this journey takes 11 hours.
Yeah, all day, which actually is kind of a good amount of time to do some grieving, which she very clearly is. And she's trying to figure everything out. What had she done? What had she omitted to do? She's so powerless. She doesn't know. None of it has anything to actually do with her. But it's such a human thing to try and find meaning in something when we don't know what the meaning is. And it is easiest to blame ourselves. I mean, she also knows that she said some bad things. And if he had known she viewed him as a murderer, she could not wonder at his turning her from his house. But she's very aware that Henry in her own heart only were privy to these shocking suspicions. She knows that Henry would never tell his dad. She is worried about Henry, how he would think and feel and look when he returned to Northanger, and she's not there. And sometimes she thinks that he would be calm and agree with his father, and other times she's so confident that he would regret her leaving and resent his father. The whole thing is, in her lovely dramatic wording, cut to the heart.
So then she's pulling into Fullerton, and there's this great passage about how a heroine should return to her native village with the dignity of a countess, with a long train of noble relations, and there's several phaetons and 3 waiting maids and a travelling chaise and 4, etc., etc., instead of which our heroine is returning in a hack post-chaise with such a blow upon sentiment as no attempt at grandeur or pathos can withstand. So Jane Austen just quickly skips over how she actually arrives, because it's not how a heroine should arrive, just as at the start of the book, Catherine is not how we would expect a heroine to be. And there's a lovely reception by her family. This just beautiful description that her family were not expecting her, quite unlooked for by all but the 2 youngest children, a boy and girl of 6 and 4 years old, who expected a brother or sister in every carriage. And they are fighting over who saw her first. Happy the voice that proclaimed the discovery, but whether such happiness were the lawful property of George or Harriet could never be exactly understood. They are arguing, I saw her first, no, I saw her first. It's so intimate and loving. So she's tumbled into this loving family again, and is soothed beyond anything she had believed possible. So all of the miseries that are spinning through her mind in the carriage, she's soothed by being so surrounded, so caressed, and the joyfulness of family love. And I think that this represents the best of the Austen family. You don't often see boisterous, happy, loving family represented, and the Morelands are just lovely here.
Although her parents are a bit disappointing. They refer to it as a strange business, and he's a strange man. And then when Sarah's getting all upset about it, her mother says it's a great deal of needless trouble. It's not at all worth understanding. Then goes on to talk about, oh, Catherine, you're always a sad little scatterbrained creature. It's good for young people to be exerting themselves. She says a similar sort of thing when they go to the Allens. It's a great comfort to find that Catherine is not a poor helpless creature, but can shift very well for herself. Mum, I just had a really bad thing happen, and you're like, oh, it's all good. You'll be fine.
It's not immediate, though. For the first half hour, they are insulted. They are worried about how unpleasant it was, and they acknowledge that General Tilney has acted neither honourably nor feelingly, neither as a gentleman nor as a parent.
That is a damning phrase.
Absolutely. And they speculate as to why he'd done it, and they call it a breach of hospitality. They call it ill will. They do have an instant reaction, but they're just very practical people, and they know that they're not going to find out, and that Catherine is safe. So that it's pointless. So
it's the turn of the Gothic thing again. It's her parents should be so concerned and indignant, but they're like, you got home safely. It's okay.
Mrs. Moreland says, I'm glad I did not know of your journey at the time, but now it's all over. Perhaps there's no great harm done. So they do very quickly get over their natural parental concern. Catherine is moping because she was expecting a declaration of love and a proposal of marriage from Henry. And her parents are completely oblivious.
Mm-hmm.
They never once thought of her heart, which for the parents of a young lady of 17, just returned from her first excursion from home, was odd enough. This is their oldest child. No, their oldest daughter. They're not used to having children in love around the house. And James had no love affairs before Isabella. So
she brings up Isabella when they're walking to the Allens.
Yes, Mrs. Moreland quickly dispatches all that she had felt on the score of James's disappointment.
And also refers to the fact that Isabella has no money. That seems so entirely out of place with what we know of the Morelands. To be like, well, also she didn't have any money, so... Although that maybe it was that she's not the smallest acquaintance with us that's of more importance, but the entirely without fortune is the bit that's stuck out to me.
And now, after such behaviour, we cannot think at all well of her.
Fair. Mr. Allen is sensible and annoyed on her behalf, and Mrs. Allen does that thing that she always does, where she just repeats what he says over and over until she gets distracted by her fashion.
And Mrs. Allen thought his expressions, Mr. Allen's expressions, are quite good enough to be immediately made use of again by herself. That's a great line.
Then Mrs. Allen brings up the Thorpes. Mrs. Thorpe's being there was such a comfort to us, was not it? Is this appropriate considering that Miss Thorpe broke the son's heart?
Not at all. It's completely dense.
But she somehow remembers the gossip that General Tilney's lodgings were taken the day after he left them. But Milson Street, you know. He left early, so the people coming in must have been, waiting for lodgings? Also, where did Captain Tilney stay when his family left? He wasn't staying with his regiment. He was on leave. Very confusing.
There is a fabulous little mother-daughter vignette on the walk home from the Allens. Mrs. Moreland is trying to drive home the lesson that Mr. and Mrs. Allen are long-standing friends, and that is more important than slight acquaintances like the Tilneys. There's a great deal of good sense in this, but there are some situations of the human mind in which good sense has very little power, and Catherine's feelings contradicted almost every position her mother advanced. And while Mrs. Moreland was successfully confirming her own opinions by the justness of her own representations, Catherine was silently reflecting that now Henry must have arrived at Northanger, now he must have heard of her departure, and now perhaps they were all setting off for Hereford. Miscommunication between mothers and teenagers. Mrs. Moreland is yapping along with her lesson about what true friendship is about, and she thinks she's teaching her daughter, but she has completely misjudged. Catherine's not listening to a word she's saying. She's just thinking, Henry must be doing this right now. This is about the right time for Henry to be doing this right now. That there's a complete mismatch in what the mother and daughter are thinking and talking about, and it's just so true.
And it's kind of heartbreaking to think that this is her first day home, right? It's now the Monday that they're supposed to be leaving Northanger, so Henry will have just come back to Northanger to see his family, and then they're going off to this false visit thing. But it feels like it's been so much longer because she's so much further away from him. It's only been one day she had that trip, and now it's the next day and they'll be leaving Northanger without her.
She did write a letter to Eleanor Tilney in this chapter too.
She reproaches herself for parting with Eleanor coldly and having never valued her merits or kindness enough, and never having to think about what Eleanor was dealing with. Eleanor had to be the one to give her that message, and Eleanor was left to deal with the father.
Well, also because Catherine didn't understand the General's character before, but now she does know that the General acts and speaks
insincerely,
thank you. So all of his kindness towards her has not been sincere. Therefore, she knows that Eleanor has been putting up with more than she was aware of. So she has more understanding of what Eleanor's life has been like.
It must be very lonely. She amusingly echoes Isabella's letter with her 1,000 good wishes. Isabella is always having thousands of thoughts for thousands of things, and Catherine uses that in her letter.
But Catherine actually does have 1,000 good wishes.
She does. Mrs. Moreland says, you might be thrown together again in the course of a few years. How is this going to happen? They live in different parts of the country. How does she think this is going to happen? Also,
they might meet in Bath again. Everyone's always getting gout in Austin.
This is true. But Catherine doesn't want this to happen because if it's 10 years or so,
Henry will be married to someone else.
Yeah. The line is to meet !! i.e. to meet his wife. Absolutely devastating. And this is what she's thinking the whole time her mother's talking about, oh well, poor James, must live and learn, la la la, your next new friends will be worth keeping. She's like, oh, he's going to marry somebody else. Oh my God. Her mother's got no idea exactly what you were saying before. They're having parallel conversations. And there's this lovely image of Catherine prior to going to Bath, running back and forth up that same road in joyful expectation, and you could almost see her and her mother walking quite slowly, her mother lecturing her with her head down, and then see like a ghost of her running past, so joyous. And then how altered a being did she return? And yes, she's grown too though. Yes, she's sad, but she's grown as well, and I think that's we can talk about spoilers, so had Henry not come, I do think that this may have still been good for Catherine in a way.
Well, it was a child running up and down the road before the trip to Bath. She's a woman now. She's had her heart broken.
Is that all it takes? We get Austen directly speaking to us again. My affair is widely different. I bring back my heroine to her home in solitude and disgrace. My heroine, I'm doing this. It's really interesting how we have like almost a narrator that is Austen, and then we have like a general narrator, and then we have the conversations between people. It was something that we talked about before, that Austen's so much more present in this novel than she is in her other ones. She's more subtle. She's a more subtle presence in her later novels.
Well, there are other novels in which she reappears towards the end. I'm thinking of Mansfield Park.
Yeah, me too.
So it's kind of a signal that things are winding up.
Which is funny, because at this point it doesn't seem like they are, unless this is the end, that Catherine's just going to be. And we leave Catherine back at home again. The end.
Well, not wishing to be a spoiler, but there's an absolute cracking signal of the end of the novel in chapter 31.
Which we will do next. And this is our discussion of chapter 29 of Northanger Abbey by Jane Austen. I'm Frances Duncan. This has been Emma. Thank you for listening, and we wish you happy reading.
For the record, Frances' eyes bulged. We are to understand that her ex would always want to see her.
All of them. Still obsessed with me. Totally going to cut that now and give a shit.